dogs. Give it up for Lauren Kelleher. So Sweet Pea was this adorable bulldog mix I was fostering for the rescue I helped run. She was about 3 years old, solid white, and she had this prior medical condition that made her head wobble a little, like Katharine Hepburn. Our rescue has an application process, and for Sweet Pea, we chose Silas, a young man in an apartment who was looking for a best friend. In the months after her adoption, we received numerous happy updates, pictures, and lovely stories about how well she was doing. But a couple of weeks after the happy Christmas photo, we received some very disturbing news from the ex-roommate, who we're gonna call Donnie. So Donnie had sent us pictures of Sweet Pea being locked in this filthy crate, and detailed examples of her being left without food and water. And he was really, really worried. So I couldn't believe it. I had to call him. So we're talking on the phone, and he's telling me how Silas had lost his job, and he's ramped up the drinking, and he's probably on drugs, and he's not taking care of himself, let alone the dog. So Donnie said that he'd be around that afternoon if we wanted to swing by and check on the dog. And more importantly, Silas should be home if we needed to confiscate the dog, which is something our rescue has never needed to do. I'm surprisingly functional in a crisis, so I sprung into action. First, I called a couple of our other volunteers who happen to be badass probation officers, and they're always willing to back me up in a crisis. Then I called Silas's local police, and I kind of asked what's the best way to handle this, because I wasn't sure. And they suggested that I called 911 when I arrive and ask for assistance with a wellness check. Then I made a copy of the contract that Silas signed outlining how he would take excellent care of Sweet Pea, and also that we promised to take Sweet Pea back if anything changed. I printed out a blank surrender form for him to fill out if he was going to give her up willingly, I was hoping. I threw a crate in my car and we hit the road. When I got to the apartment, I met the probation officers in their car, and we kind of made a plan. It felt like we were on a stakeout looking through the windows for signs of activity. And then this scrawny, greasy kid walks around the corner. That must be Donnie. As instructed, I called 911, asked for assistance with a wellness check for the address. While we were waiting, the probation officers drilled Donnie for more information. During our initial phone call, he had mentioned having more pictures and videos of the allegations of abuse, but when pressed to show us, all he could provide were videos of Silas calmly pleading about something completely unrelated to the dog. I started to wonder if this was really as bad as he said it was, but I had to see for myself. When the squad car pulled up, Donnie hung back, and the police said that they were actually familiar with the address already, having just been there a week prior for an issue with the roommate, who was now conveniently completely out of sight. We went up to the door, knocked, and Silas opened with happy little Sweet Pea at his feet. She was fine, happy, safe, wiggly, and then barking at us to protect her daddy. She had forgotten me, as most of my fosters eventually do once they settle into their forever homes. But once I saw she was okay, then I started looking around, and the kitchen walls had just been painted, and there's piles of dishes everywhere except the empty shelves above the stove. And then one of the cops makes a comment congratulating Silas on all the progress on the repairs he made. And I just cocked my head like a confused dog. So apparently, while Silas went out of town over Christmas with Sweet Pea, Donnie decided to use the stove and cook some drugs, which started a fire. So he opened up the bathroom window to let in some -6-degree air, which he then forgot to close. So that froze the pipes and created even more damage. So Silas had to kick Donnie out for that, and drugs, and theft, and more, and Donnie was using false accusations of dog abuse to get revenge on Silas, the thing that would hurt Silas the most. So the pictures that we received were from one day when Silas was running late from work and Sweet Pea had an accident in her crate. So I was relieved that Sweet Pea was fine, she was safe, she was happy. We thanked the officers for their help and apologized for wasting their time. We gave Silas a hug, and then Sweet Pea rolled over for a belly rub, and then she barked at us. But still, I was furious for being collateral damage to a crackhead's revenge scheme. With very little effort, Donnie was able to completely disrupt our lives. I thought about getting my own revenge on Donnie to get back at him for all that he put through us, everything he put us through that day. But I thought it was better for me to focus my energy on saving someone that wanted and needed my help. So instead of driving home with an empty crate in my car, I swung by one of the shelters in the city and I pulled a dog that needed to be saved. A little Doberman I ended up naming Liberace on the drive home. So it was better for me to focus my energy in rescuing one more. Thank you.